But I want to continue on to Acts before we get to John. And now this may seem a little different. I'm talking about the Gospels. Why I've mentioned Acts? Well, it's because, again, Luke and Acts were written together. They were separated later on, but when they were first written, they were written as one story, which is kind of a cool thing. So it's, again, written by Luke. The dating is the same time. So let's get to the content of the book of Acts. If you've never read the book of Acts begins with Jesus ascending to heaven, and then it goes through the whole history of the early church up until close to the time of Paul's death, which would have been several decades after the death of Jesus. But the key to understanding the book of Acts is to understand, again, there's a geographical move that is going on here from Jerusalem to Rome. He is following along as the gospel is spread outward from Jerusalem, covering the entire known world. So the first part, 1:1 through 6:7 of Acts, tells the story of the good news being spread about Jesus in Jerusalem. From 6:8 to 9:31, the geographical expansion moves into neighboring Judea and Samaria, where Stephen and the Hellenists start to play a bigger role. Some non-traditional Jewish people are all of a sudden a part of this spread. And then we see in 9:32 to 12:24 that it goes to the Gentiles. And the Apostle Peter plays a key role in starting to understand what it means for the church to reach the Gentiles. And Paul comes to know Jesus. And then from 12:25 to 16:5, the expansion goes from Jerusalem to Judea and Samaria, and now it is going outside to Asia, outside of Israel. And it talks about how the early leaders dealt with all of these Gentiles coming to know Jesus. And then the church becomes steadily more Gentile than it is Jewish, which we know is the reality as we see it now. And then from 1921 to 28:31, it tells how Paul, the apostle of the Gentiles, finally gets to Rome and begins to tell the good news of Jesus to the leaders along the way. So it goes and it grows progressively outward and outward and outward, further and further along. So let's keep going in this. So one of the things that's interesting is in the book of Acts, the number of speeches given by Stephen, by Peter, by Paul. And these speeches do two things. One, they show us what early sermons looked like, which is cool. But also they give us kind of a verbal theology of what they would have believed as the early church leaders. The other thing to note is the connection between Jesus and the Spirit being, again, responsible for every major turning point in this story. In Luke, the Spirit was upon Jesus. He empowered him. He led him. And in Acts, the Spirit moves from Jesus. Jesus gives the Spirit to the church, and he moves and he empowers the church to go and do the ministry that Jesus had called them to do. And one of the interesting things that we see in Acts in chapter 16, in chapter 20, in chapter 27 and through 28 is the way that Luke subtly inserts himself into the story. He was a part of these missionary journeys that Paul was in, and he gives us his firsthand account of what was going on and of the ways that the Holy Spirit that moved, of the crazy miracles that happened and what he saw going on. So 1:1 through 6:7, Jerusalem. 6:8 through 9:31, Judea and Samaria. 9:32 to 12:24, the Gentiles. 12:25 to 16:5, Asia. 16:6 to 19:20, Europe. In 19:21 to 28:30, the gospel reaches Rome. That is an encapsulation of Luke and Acts. Kind of fun. Okay. The next video is going to talk about another gospel. So if you have time, keep going. If you need to stop for right now, end it here and come back later on to read the next gospel.